Hey Fixers, and welcome to today's tutorial. I'm excited to show you how the zip and unzip methods work in Python. So you may already have seen the zip function. So it's a Python built-in function, which you can see it's highlighted in my editor, for example, with blue, indicating that it's a Python built-in function. So you don't have to import anything. But you can just use it out of the box. So with any Python editor, with any Python installation, basically. So the general idea is, so before we dive in the zip function, I want to motivate it a bit and give you a general conceptual idea. Because the zip function is used by Python coders, especially by advanced Python coders. So if the Python coder becomes more and more proficient with the use of the Python programming language, he will use more and more the zip function, basically. I have observed many professional developers using the zip function everywhere they can. And the beginner developer, he doesn't really grasp the meaning of the zip function. He's not confident in its use, so he won't use the zip function. He will find other ways of writing the same thing in a few lines of code. Yeah, but the zip function, if you like, as any concept in coding, if you really understand the meaning, it's highly effective to use it, and you will use it more and more in practice. You will write more condensed, more efficient code that is also easier to understand for more advanced coders. So, but let's maybe start with a few conceptual ideas. So say you have these two lists. This is I just write in my Python shell to show you the concepts first, without, I mean, don't even bother that this is basically that I just have list objects and I don't store them in variables or so. So say you have two lists and you want to zip them together, then you obtain, if you zip them together, so if you use those as arguments to the zip function, then you obtain this list of tuples, and I give you the tuples first, and then you can try to figure out what exactly does the zip function do. Okay, so here we have two lists. This is given, and the zip function zips together those two lists. Okay, so what does it mean? It basically adds groups together the first elements of the list in a new tuple, and then it groups together the second elements of the list in a new tuple, yeah, in this second tuple. And then it groups together the third elements of the list in a new tuple. So basically it groups together the ith elements of the list you use in the zip function to a tuple value. And you can even add more lists. For example, here, say we have another list, 7, 8, 9. So if you use them as a zip function, then it will just add the third value to the tuples, okay? Tuples. So it basically 7, 8, 9. So it basically will simply group together the ith element of all the iterables that are passed into the zip function. Okay, so this is what the zip function does. And so you have two lists with some elements on the lines, and you simply group together the elements in the tuples of the different lists. So you get a list of tuples as a result of using the zip function. So let's have a practical example. Say we have two lists. Say we call this one list 1, and this one we call list 2. And now, just for maybe later use, we call this one list 3. So we have three lists, and we now we uncomment this one, and now we have a variable zipped, and in the variable we store the result of applying the zip function to list 1 and list 2. Okay, and we convert this to a list because the zip function will return a zip object, and the zip object is basically maybe let's have a look at the zip object first. So if you print the zip object, yeah, it gives you an iterator. Okay, so the zip object is an iterable. You see it doesn't give you any information, but you can do something like this. So you can iterate over a zip object. For tuple in zipped, print, let's not call it tuple because tuple is already a reserved name. So if you do this, so we can iterate over the zip object, and this just gives us the tuples. Okay, so the zip object is a more efficient data structure to iterate over than a list, because a list needs to reserve the whole memory at the beginning, of the list creation process. So it creates a list and then the whole memory is already reserved. But an iterator, it can dynamically, allocate, create new, the next element. Yeah, it just creates the next element and the next element and the next element. So you can iterate over all elements in a given data structure. Okay, and you can easily convert an iterator to a list by simply calling the list constructor, okay, which is also a built-in function. And this way, now you see the what was previously an iterator is now a list, and it contains the element 1, 4, 2, 5, 3, 6. So it basically simply groups together the first elements of the two lists, the second elements of the two lists, and the third elements of the two lists. Okay, so this is what our what the zip function does essentially. So far so good. It's quite simple to understand, and now you can even pass the third list, for example. You can pass an arbitrary number of lists, and then it will just zip together an arbitrary number of lists. And you can see here that we have now tuples with 3 values instead of 2 values because we have passed 3 lists. Okay, and it will just it will just add together the ith element of all the lists you pass into the zip function. Good. So this is like the first part, how to zip something. But now the next, what if you want to unzip something? So given this zipped object, so let's store it maybe in a. So let's go back to the example with 2 lists. We remove 1 list here, and this is the result of our zipped object. So how can we basically unzip this? So how can we get the 2 lists again from a zipped object? So doing the reverse or inverse operation, and you can do this basically by, let's call it L1 and L2, creating new variables. So we have 2 lists, and we use the following simple call: zip. So again, we use the zip function to unzip the original elements, and this is difficult to grasp for many people. Well, how does the zip function? What is the reverse of the zip function, basically? But think about it. If you again group together the first element of your tuple of your first tuple and the first element of your second tuple and the first element of your third tuple, then this is the original list 1. This is the original list. And now if you take the second element of your first tuple, the second element of the second tuple, and the second element of the third tuple, this is again your second input list. And if you have like 5 tuple values because you had 5 input lists, then you will obtain 5 output lists, 5 unzipped lists. And therefore we simply pass our original list of tuples, and we use this small asterisk operator, which is the unpacking operator. So it unpacks all values in the list, all tuples, and removing the outer list, basically. Yeah? It removes this outer, because you remember the zip function takes an arbitrary number of iterables. And as I already said, in words, we want to group together the first elements of all these tuples and the second elements of all these tuples, and so on, yeah. And but we cannot simply pass a list of something. If you pass a list of something, then it will just take this list as a whole, as one iterable. But we want to have this one. We want to use basically only the tuples as an iterable. So we want to get rid of the outer list, and we can get rid of the outer list by using this unpacking operator. Okay, so this is how it works. So we unpack all tuples into the zip function, and the tuple is an iterable. You can iterate over all values in the tuple. So now we have 3 tuples or 3 iterables as input to the zip function, and now it will simply zip together the first elements of these iterables and the second values of these iterables, and so on. It will unpack. It will create the original or recreate the original list. So if you print L1 and print L2, we will see the original list. Yeah, these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so this is how you can. To summarize, you can zip 2 lists together. So zip the ith element or pack the ith element into a new tuple from a given list of from a given number of iterables, which you simply pass into the zip function. So the zip function groups together the ith element of these iterables, and you can unzip this by simply unpacking the result into another zip function call. Okay, so this is like you can do the one operation the one way, and then the other way the inverse operation by using the same function with a slight modification. It's just this unpacking operator. Okay, thanks for listening to this video. If you have any questions, then feel free to ask the questions below, and see you in the next video. Bye.